given equally to all women. While we celebrate the progress for women that the ratification of the 19th Amendment brought, we believe that it is equally important to recognize that this progress was uneven and lasting. Black women who marched alongside white women during suffrage were relegated to the back and not able to enjoy full voting rights until 1965. Today, we can clearly see through the line from that point in history when they were excluded to the ongoing struggle for greater participation of Black women in politics, not just as voters, but also as candidates and elected officials. We have more work to do, and in celebration of and commitment to a more inclusive future, Emerge and our partners are focused on ensuring that our democracy represents our communities by training women candidates who run and win. This panel discussion will look back at some of the unsung heroes of the suffrage movement, examine Black women's representation today, and examine solutions to overcome barriers and build a more equitable system. Before we introduce today's panelists, I'd like to introduce our special guest speaker, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Mayor Lightfoot is the first Black woman and first LGBTQ person to ever serve as mayor of Chicago. Welcome, Mayor Lightfoot.
Thank you, Ashanti, and it's good to see you at least virtually. It's great to be here. And thank all of you for being
Mayor,
here.
I can't hear you.
Oh.
Are you muted still?
I didn't think.
There you are.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Mayor.
Okay. All right. Let me start again and say thank you to Shante. Thank you for Emerge, and thank all of you for being here. I'm grateful for your work in building an incubator for nurturing aspiring women leaders. It's very important and critically needed. In the dictionary, the word emerge is defined as to become manifest, to become known, and that's a big idea. Here we are at a century mark, and we're certainly becoming known. Look at the remarkable women now in Congress, now among our governors, and now addressing us on the floor of this virtual convention. From Governor Gretchen Whitmer, or she noted last night, quote unquote, that woman from Michigan, the growing wings of women who have helped take back the House in 2018, to my fellow mayors. I call them my sister mayors and my dear friends, Mayor Keisha Lance Bottom of Atlanta, Mayor Muriel Bowser of Washington, D.C., Mayor Jenny Durkin of Seattle, Nan Whaley of Dayton, and so many more. Women are leading in city halls and congressional committees and state legislatures across this country. Many of us have been direct beneficiaries of the training and support of Emerge. So I'm very proud and grateful of your work. At the same time, the unimaginable cannot be ignored. We have and I will emphasize, temporary occupant in the White House who hurls insults at women, brags about sexually assaulting and degrading women, and it refers to women elected officials with the most insulting and sexist nicknames. That has set a tone for this administration. So we have seen in recent weeks a United States Congresswoman being berated, cursed, and verbally assaulted on the steps of the U.S. Capitol by, of course, none other than one of her colleagues. So even after 100 years of women's suffrage, we still have our work cut out for us. Because even after attaining elected office, we can be dismissed by some, degraded and disrespected. And for women of color and Black women, it's noteworthy that we really could not even vote after the passage of the 19th Amendment. It took decades later for us to be able to truly win our right to full citizenship, starting with the right to vote. Indeed, when the renowned suffragist Carrie Chapman Catt traveled the country, lobbying congressmen to enact the 19th Amendment, her argument was in the South was, if white women can vote, this will strengthen the cause of white supremacy. Imagining that as your opening salvo. This was an argument that prevailed even when the 19th Amendment became law. Black women still didn't count and rarely could vote until the passage of the Voting Rights Act in 1965. People literally died for our right to vote. So it's frustrating to have to convince people to vote today. And as I'm saying this, I'm thinking, of course, about our beloved John Lewis, John Lewis, who literally put his life on the line in order to win the right to vote for respect and dignity of Black folks and really people of color. And I was on a session earlier today talking with gay members of Congress and talking about what tremendous support John Lewis was to them and making sure that our rights as a gay community were strengthened. So when you think about the sacrifices of so many people, John Lewis just being one of many, we have to make sure that we do everything we can to emphasize to our current and future voters the importance of voting. Voting is our power. Voting is our ticket into the corridors of power and making sure that our voices are heard, that our lived experience is reflected in public policy. If you don't vote, you give your power to someone else. So we've got to make sure that our communities understand the importance of getting Joe Biden and Kamala Harris elected. They represent our best hope in reversing the negative cloud that we've been living under and that we've been facing on so many issues. For me personally, they both individually and collectively give me hope. Give me hope that we can restore our democratic institutions that have been under siege. Give me hope that civility will once again be a hallmark of the president and the White House. And give me hope that we can continue to push forward on the things that we know are critical to secure our full rights as residents and citizens of this great country. The path of democracy is not pretty, it's not easy, and many times it's messy. But the thing that we must do is unite together across the divides, build bridges to each other and over which we can travel to other people and keep marching forward. We've got our task ahead of us. We know what our mission is, and we need to embrace it and work hard every single day till the polls close on November 3rd to make sure that we can put this ugly chapter behind us and relegate it to a footnote in history and start building the kind of America that deals all of us in, includes all of us, and make sure that we are moving forward towards that American ideal of we the people, and that all of us have a right to join in the great prosperity of this country. Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lightfoot, for joining us, for your great words, and of course, for all the work that you do. All right, everyone, we are going to get into today's panel. I am really excited to have all of these amazing women join us today. First, we're going to start off with Dr. Keisha N. Blaine, who is an author, associate professor of history at the University of Pittsburgh, and the president of the African American Intellectual History Society. Keisha, please give us a few opening remarks and welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be with you all. I'm looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you, Keisha. Next, very excited to introduce my good friend, Glenda Carr. Glenda is the co-founder and president of Higher Heights for America and Higher Heights Leadership Fund, the leading national organizations dedicated to building Black women's collective political power from the voting booth to elected office. So when you see that hashtag Black Women Lead, that is Glenda and Higher Heights. Welcome, Glenda, and please give us a few opening remarks.
Thank you, Ashanti. I'm so excited to stop by your virtual event. I was sharing with somebody, I am rolling this week like we're really at the Democratic Convention.
Yes,
I'm wearing my shoes, like my feet don't hurt, and I'm not hungry, but I actually tired. So if we were actually in person, we'd be stopping by each other's events. So I love that I'm able to stop by and be in conversation with you. I'm so excited about the conversation about talking about how do we continue to harness and build on women's leadership. But today we're talking about Black women's political leadership, and so excited about you in your leadership role at Emerge. I'm very excited.
Oh, thank you, Glenda. I appreciate all of your support, from encouraging me to apply to be the president of Emerge to how you just continue to show up for me every day, really, now that I'm in this role. And next, our final panelist we have Latasha Brown, co-founder of the Black Voters Matter Fund, a power-building Southern-based civic engagement organization that played an instrumental role in the 2017 Alabama U.S. Senate race, and so many more. And if you recognize Latasha's beautiful face, it's because I'm sure you all see her on your TV screen all the time, like I see her on my TV screen all the time, just speaking truth to power. Latasha, thank you for joining us today, and give us a few opening remarks.
Oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom over me. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. I wanted to start that in the spirit of resistance and dedication and visionary leadership that Black women have always played in the suffrage movement, although oftentimes our contributions have gone erased. So thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, Latasha. And now everyone also knows she is an incredible singer. So she talks about her music a lot of times too, and such a beautiful voice. And I am really ready to get into today's discussion. So Keisha, I want to start with you. So we know today is the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment, which gave women the right to vote, technically. As we know, Black women were sidelined during suffrage and did not enjoy full voting rights until decades later with the passage of the Voting Rights Act. Can you talk a little bit about Black women's participation in the movement and their erasure from one of the most well-known narratives by white suffragists?
Absolutely. I think one of the unfortunate realities is when we talk about women's rights in this country, generally the entire framing of it excludes Black women. And I say that because as someone who has studied feminist movements, I'm always struck by the fact that we continue to say, well, women's suffrage began with Seneca Falls. So we love to say that. And I'm not dismissing Seneca Falls, but when we say that women's suffrage begins with Seneca Falls, then what we're actually suggesting is that Black women weren't part of the narrative because, in fact, there were no Black women present at Seneca Falls. Of course, we know that Frederick Douglass was present, and that's certainly significant. But when you begin a narrative where you center a movement or you center a gathering, which was an important gathering, hundreds of people came together, advocated for women's rights. But when you start there, you already shape the narrative where Black women are out of the story. And what you do is you overlook the remarkable work that Black women had done even long before Seneca Falls. So I think about someone like Mariah Stewart in the early 1830s. So this is several years before 1848. Someone who wrote about women's rights. She spoke about women's rights in the city of Boston. And that's just one example. We can go further back. We could talk about someone like Jarena Lee within the context of the AME Church. We often don't talk about Black women in the church as key parts of this story of women's suffrage. That's a complete mistake. We have to center Black women's work in the church. And we can go back in the 18th century, and so I mentioned just these two examples because this is not the story that most people are told. And to this day, textbooks continue to begin with Seneca Falls, and in doing so excludes Black women from the beginning. And students continue to repeat this narrative. And so here we are talking about the 19th Amendment, where we have to remind people that even though Black women had to continue fighting for voting rights and had to wait, most had to ultimately wait decades until they could ultimately cast the ballot. It's important to know that Black women have shaped this history, have been fundamental to this history. And the problem is that people haven't recognized their contributions, not that they haven't been involved.
And this is why you're the president of the African American Intellectual History Society, just taking us back to not just Black women, but Black women in the church. And you're right, we did not learn the true story in our history books at all. Mm-hmm. So many things we were just written out of. And I want to pose the next question to all of our panelists. From your perspective of your work, How do you think the legacy of suffrage and the 19th Amendment has impacted Black women's participation in politics today?
I will start. I love everybody's face on that question. Like, I would say, I've been saying this. I mean, it's been a long lead up to the celebration of the 100th years, right? Most people aren't aware of the impact and the journey of the suffrage movement, the 100 years, and then you have Black women that are disconnected by that movement, right? Many people aren't aware of all the suffrages, but particularly the Black woman. It is oftentimes we talk about Sojourner Truth. I know I do, right? But there are, as Keisha will talk about, a variety of Black women who knew that they wouldn't benefit of their work at that table, but they knew they needed to be at that table. And I think for me, that is the leadership I stand on, that I will always ensure, including women like Ashanti and Latasha, that we will have seats at tables, although we're demanding our return on voting investment. So I think that is the history of how we connect to the suffrage movement. I will say something about the boldness of the women in that point in history. I've been using this analogy, this connection all week. So I'm Glenda. My parents said they didn't name me after Glinda the Good Witch. But my favorite line in The Wizard of Oz is that, Glinda the Good Witch says to Dorothy, you always had the power. You just need to know that. And one thing I have to say about the suffragists, they stood in their power so boldly during that time that I think that has been the legacy of being able to boldly stand. So, as we broaden the conversation of more people knowing about this movement, and more importantly, Black women's role in this movement, I'm still often, me and my friends are still disconnected by it. So I still think there's work to be done, but it's important to know the history and how it connects to our work today.
And kind of building off what Glenda is sharing, I'm so glad, even when we think about the work that she's doing at her organization, Higher Heights, that there has to be, in this space, you've got to have an organization that really focuses on lifting up Black women, because we have been so marginalized in the process in terms of being supported. Even though we are people, it's not a shock that we're workers, right? But when we're talking about elevating us into positions of power, there's always a question. There's always some kind of other framework that we're held at a different standard. And I think when we're looking at the suffrage movement, we also have to be reflective of it. It's one thing if it stopped there, but it didn't stop there, right? If I come forward and we're talking about even in the civil rights movement, which was a movement that was actually shaped by Black women, but we're even marginalized in that movement in terms of our contribution. We know about the Montgomery bus boycott. For the most part, we know about Rosa Parks, but do we know about the women who actually organized, were the ones who were organized in the march, right? The night before. We know about what happened in Selma and Bloody Sunday and John Lewis and Albert Turner and Jose Williams on the front of the bridge. But do we know that it was actually Amelia Boynton in 1954 that had started organizing and actually was the one who invited Dr. King and others to come into Selma? The bottom line is, even in our own history, we've been marginalized. And so that's why it's really important for Black women in particular to take this moment to be reflective of not just what is and moving forward, but also to make sure that we're unerased. And so that we're going back and we're looking at historically, even when we're thinking about, I can even go to FDR. In FDR, everybody gives FDR credit for the New Deal. But if you really know the history, that Mary McLeod Bethune actually was with a group of people that call themselves the Black Cabinet that were very instrumental in the shaping of the policies. But Black women's voices are often, and our contributions are often marginalized when we talk about the history of what has happened in our country.
And Latasha, again, what she said, talking about history, love FDR. I consider him one of my favorite presidents, but it wasn't until I took my African-American history courses in college that I found out about his Black cabinet and how we were leading there. And I want to give our next question to Glenda, because you are the queen when it comes to this question. We know that Black women are the most reliable voting bloc for Democrats, yet they are still underrepresented in elected office. We know with the Senate race, Doug Jones is that he was the first Democrat elected in Alabama in more than 20 years. Black women made up 17% of voters, even though they were less than 15% of the state's population. Yet, overall, we know that only 2 Black women have been elected to the United States Senate. Why do you think Black women continue to be underrepresented in elected office? We just talked about our greatness, our organizing skills, how we lead, and what are some ways that we can effectively organize and leverage our power to increase our numbers?
Yeah, I'll offer a couple of reasons, right? We have seen an increase in Black women's political leadership that is not only us stepping off the sidelines and running, but also winning. There are, statistics, data that points to from the Center for American Women in Politics, the work we do with them, is that women are not encouraged to run for office. Black women are actually actively discouraged from running for office. And that comes from our homes, our communities, and then the broader, the thought leaders, the notion of what does the face of leadership look like. Oftentimes Black women are juggling 1,000 things, right? We're taking care of our homes, we're taking care of others. And so it is the I call it the duality of like wanting to run, but figuring out how to do it. I think the women recently have been able to create more support mechanisms to be able to run. The average age of all women have dropped. Historically, women run later in life after the children are older or out of the homes. And so there's some of those are just like the societal barriers that exist. But at the end of the day, we are running and winning. And so we celebrate the record gains in Congress, particularly in the House. But I will just leave those watching just some statistics for you to understand, because we're celebrating this record-breaking year, but recognizing we're still so severely underrepresented. So Black women are a little less than 8% of the population. We're only 44.3% of Congress. So although we have a record number of Black women, we are still not at parity in Congress. And people aren't talking about it, but at the end of the day, if the Biden-Harris ticket wins, and the governor of California does not appoint one of the Black women that are by all means qualified, we won't have a Black woman we may not have a Black woman in the U.S. Senate, right? If any of the nominees aren't elected this November. We only have elected 15 Black women to serve in statewide executive offices in this country, in our country's history. And in theory, we have not elected a Black woman governor. I can never just say it outright, because in theory, we did elect Stacey Abrams, barring voter suppression and stealing, but we have not elected a Black woman governor. And finally, out of the top 100 cities, we've had gains. We've gone from 2 Black women serving in that role in 2014 to 7. So there's a lot of great opportunity. Plus, there's opportunities for us to run in different types of districts. Black women, my thing is, if white men can, feel that they can represent me every single day, I want the electorate to actually see that, great leadership comes in all different packages. And that is certainly how voters in polls have said about Kamala Harris being the vice president pick. And so Black women are running in majority districts, in diverse majority white districts. They're running in diverse districts. Lauren Underwood, a representative from Illinois, elected in 2018, represents a district that is only 3% Black. And so I think we're going to continue to see, as I've been calling them this week, daughters and granddaughters of Shirley Chisholm's legacy actually running. Our goal now is to make sure that we continue to push the barriers and dismantle the institutional obstacles out of their way, because we've absolutely proven that once elected, we not only represent our constituencies, but the entire country.
I love that. You said the daughters and granddaughters of Shirley Chisholm's legacy. Oh, that's beautiful. And Glenda, you talked a lot about voter suppression, how that actually prevented us from truly having our first Black woman governor. We all know what happened down there in Georgia. So I want to pose our next question to Latasha. So we know from the Jim Crow laws that denied Black women the right to vote after the passage of the 19th Amendment, to blatant voter suppression, voter ID laws, purges, disenfranchisement of returning citizens, and even now what we're seeing with the United States Postal Service. I just saw that DeJoy said that he's putting his changes on hold until after Election Day. But again, we know that doesn't mean that we have to stop. We still have to keep up pressure because there is after Election Day. We know we have elections every year. Just Black women are still being denied the ability to fully enjoy our voting rights. How can we best push back against people and policies that make it harder for Black women to vote and ensure that our voices are heard at the ballot box?
I think that's a great question. Like 3 quick points that come to mind. The first is that we've got to move some people out of the way. There are people who are stopping and they're standing in front of progress, and we've got to move them out the way. We've got to take it seriously. So we've got to vote. You're either with us or you're against us. Which side are you on? And so we've got to literally move people out the way, and there are consequences to those that actually suppress our vote. And the way that we do that is we've got to vote. We've got to vote in record numbers. And we know not just for ourselves, what women do, we always take our families and our communities along. So we need to make sure every woman needs to be officially deputized to be responsible for making sure that we organize 10 people to go to the polls and vote, because that's the first thing we have to do. The second thing I think we have to do is we have to radically reimagine and push those around us to look at different systems and in terms of leadership. That the bottom line is, if we're going to go into office and the only thing that changes is gender, that doesn't really do much about shifting the conditions of our community. We have to be bold in our leadership to make sure that we're standing from a place of policy that we want to shift. One, instead of being politicians of war, we should be politicians of peace. Instead of us pushing and aligning with folks because it's about party power, we should be the advocates around people power. That when we're looking at women and the conditions of women, poverty is a women's issue. 68% of Black women are hourly workers. Right now in COVID-19, we are the most vulnerable. Many of women who are working, and particularly women of color, don't have job security. They don't have time off. And on top of that, many of them are the caretakers or the main caregiver of their family. So when we look at Black women and we look at women of color and we look at voter suppression, we don't have the time or the privilege or the opportunity to be able to stand in line for 3 or 4 hours when we have an entire community that's dependent on us, that we have our jobs on the line, that we have people that we care for and we love that are literally dependent on us. And so we've got to see voter suppression not just as a piece around just voting in itself, but it creates harm in our community. It actually takes resources out of our community. And so we have to attack it as that. And I think the third and the final thing is that we also have to really be able to lift up the legacy of women, so that as we shift the paradigm of leadership, because oftentimes we will gravitate towards male leadership, right? And this idea of that it has to be a domineering leadership. No, we can stand in our power. We have to support women. We have to learn the history. You know, I want to tell people that there's actually a website of Suffrage, Race, and Power Unerased that literally lifts up the women, Black women who were part of the suffrage movement. We cannot allow our stories to be erased. We have to be the storytellers and the griots to make sure that we're lifting and we're sharing the stories and moving them forward.
Oh, that was so powerful. And last night I was watching our forever First Lady, Michelle Obama, her speech at the convention. And when she was talking about this, she was just telling people, we're going to have to get ready. You're going to have to stand in line. And for me, when she said, bring your round paper bag dinner, I was like, whew, this is real. This is so real, what we're going to have to deal with in November. And I want to pose our next question to all of our panelists. So we've done a good overview of what these 100 years have been like. What is your hope for Black women's political power, civic engagement over the next 100 years?
I love that question. I'll jump right in because I love the question.
You go for it, Latasha.
I think of myself as a Black futurist. At the end of the day, we have to, I ask people, even right now, the people that are watching this, I want you just to take a couple of seconds and imagine an America without racism. Most of us cannot even imagine America without racism. And if we cannot imagine, have a vision of holding America without racism, How will we ever achieve that? And so that there were some brothers and sisters, there were some women who were on a slave plantation that didn't have government on their side, did not have resources, were not even treated as human beings, but were committed and knew, had a vision that their children, their children's children were going to be free, right? Because they were visionaries. They could see what others could not see. And so I am saying that as women, what I would like to see in the next 100 years is that we reshape every single system in this country. There has to be a complete reformation that we're eliminating sexism and racism, that we have a government, that the economic system is based on the well-being and the welfare of its people, not the stock market, that we have an education system that actually leans into the gifts and the talents of our children all across the board, that we're developing an education system that facilitates that, not just based on testing, that we actually facilitate a healthcare system that is rooted in healing people, not exploiting them being sick. So I think that women have the vision. We can make everything taste a little bit better. We can take anything and take a little bit here and there and make some gumbo. We've got to literally be the leaders of reimagining. How can we create a peaceful, just, equitable world that all of us deserve to live in? So that's what I see in 100 years. I see radical reformation being led by women of color that will increase the opportunity for all of us.
And Latasha, what you just said really spoke to me. That's why I'm like, yes, like Latasha, tell us. I've been speaking at a lot of our Emerge graduations, and what I've been telling the women is, for them, I know they're going to create great policies that will move this country forward, but reminding them that because they're running for office while we're in the middle of two pandemics, a health pandemic and a racial injustice pandemic, that they fully get to reimagine policies in ways that other people haven't. Reimagining healthcare, education, criminal justice reform, and the fact that these women, a lot of them Black women, are running during this time. Their leadership is going to be profound for what we see across the country with changes in elected office. Keisha, you want to tell us, what does your next 100 years look like?
Well, as we have just been talking, I've been thinking a lot about Fannie Lou Hamer, and one of the things that she said, she repeated over and over again, that nobody's free until everybody's free. And that's a quote that I think about often, because if we're not careful, we'll sort of live our lives truly just concerned about the challenges we're facing, the kinds of concerns that we have, whether in our individual communities. And what I always tell people is that you cannot simply raise up your hands in celebration and say, great, I've made it, or a group of people made it, or maybe there's some gains here or there, so this is wonderful. And I think it's a similar kind of framing when we think about the 19th Amendment, is that I question how one can truly celebrate the 19th Amendment. Quite frankly, I don't see what's to celebrate. I say that because how do you celebrate a moment that simply does not apply to all women? How do you celebrate a development in U.S. history that gives rights to some and not others? I simply don't think there's much to celebrate there. I think we can certainly point to it as a moment of development within a longer history. But if we're being honest, it's actually exemplifies the problem with U.S. history. It exemplifies the problem with American society, and the way that we have constantly opened up doors for some and shut the same doors in the faces of others. And so as I look to the future, I just hope that everyone will recognize that we truly can't celebrate anything unless it truly applies equally to all. And so at this particular moment, even as we're looking towards November, I hope that people not only think about their interests, and they certainly should think about their interests, but you should also think about other groups too. So if you are a white person and you're voting this November, maybe the question isn't just, well, who do I vote for? Who will empower me as a white person? Maybe the question should be, who will actually help us move toward a society that is fully inclusive, that extends freedom to all, because quite frankly, if everybody isn't free, you're not going to be free either, right? And I go right back to Fannie Lou Hamer. And so I'm certainly hopeful. I think we're seeing signs that we're moving in the right directions. I think, the current uprisings certainly signal that some people are finally getting it, but we certainly have to keep the momentum going and make sure, as we've already stated, that we vote. And that we not only vote, but we vote carefully, because, people voted too the last time, and we already know how that turned out.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you use the word inclusive. That's a word that we use at Emerge. We want an inclusive democracy. That's how we move forward, right? Glenda, give us the visuals. What does your next 100 years look like?
Well, above my head, I have the word dream. So I've always been a daydreamer, right? And so I dream, Latasha and I did Alicia Garza's Our Black Futures. So I dream in black. And for me, it is about us building a democracy that we can all believe in. And at the center of that, Black women want economically thriving, educated, healthy, and safe communities. And that's the broad umbrella. Like, can we get there? And how do we do that? It is what we just heard Latasha and Keisha talk about, right? It is the steps to be able to ensure that we have, as I always talk about my great grandmother, she dreamt a dream bigger for me than I could have ever imagined. A woman that was born in 1895 and died shy of her 100th birthday. And so for us, we need to dream a dream bigger for the Black women coming before us. And that is using, I believe that this is a movement building moment for us to, push the many progressive policies that we were told weren't able to do. And with a backdrop of a global pandemic and a racial uprising since the killing of George Floyd, many of the things that we've been fighting very hard for have actually at least been implemented temporarily. The goal now is for it to be done systemically and with a very clear gender and racial lens. And so that's my hope for 100 years, is that we actually use this moment to actually build the democracy we can believe in.
What we've been talking about at Emerge lately is Leaders Matter. That's our hashtag we've been talking about. All of you are great leaders. You inspire me. So I want to ask you all, who inspires you? Who are some of the other Black women who are pushing the conversation forward, who we should be following, who we should be listening to, who are going to help us achieve the vision that each of you just beautifully laid out for the next 100 years?
Oh my goodness, there's so many. I'm sitting here in my mind like who to start with. I want to offer that oftentimes, in male leadership, we're looking for who are the people that are in charge. There are millions of women that we don't know their names that are serving us every day, that are going to work, working 3 and 4 jobs and cannot pay their bills, that are struggling each and every day, and they're often overlooked. While I want to lift up the leaders, and I'm going to give a couple of names of those, I want us to recommit, because I do believe that all women, there are Latino women right now that their children are locked in cages and separated from them right now in this moment. I want those sisters to be lifted up. I want those sisters that have been incarcerated and chained to their beds while they're giving birth. I want those sisters to be lifted up. Those sisters who represent the disabled community that we have invisibilized. I am saying that part of what women are, who we are, is we open up the space for all of us. And no matter where you go, there is a woman that's leading, whether we know her name. She might not have a title. She might not have letters behind her name, but she is doing the work to survive for her and her family and to advance her community. And oftentimes those are the women that we let down, that we don't fight for the wages, that we don't fight that they get health care, that we don't fight and hold people account that create sexual assault. So I'm just saying that part of what we've got to do is that when we've got to lead with those women in mind, and we've got to follow them, because if we follow them, we won't go wrong. So I just hope this is a moment that we reconnect, not just to the charismatic leader that is in the head of the organization or leading thousands of people where there are women that I can say inspire me. But is that sister that when I go to a hotel that makes sure that that hotel is prepared for me? That sister who just walked up to me on the street that said, "Are you okay?" That sister that prepares my food. That sister who is in the fields right now, in the farming fields right now, in 100 heat and picking tomatoes. Those are the women that we oftentimes overlook. And those are the women that inspire me and why I do the work that I do.
Well, I would add, as someone who studies history, I'm inspired by many people, but I'm truly inspired by Black women historians, by the Black women historians who I think have provided a model for me. And what they have really demonstrated is the importance of centering these stories. I want to mention, especially within the context of our discussion, the work of Martha Jones. Martha Jones is a historian at Johns Hopkins University. She has a book that was just released called Vanguard. And it's about how Black women worked for women's rights, right? It's about a retelling of this suffrage movement through the lives, through the voices and experiences of Black women. These are the kinds of narratives that we need more of, because it really helps us to, I think, better understand the developments taking place today. I think it's hard to even conceptualize truly what's happening in this moment if we don't know the history. And I think about it even within the context of Kamala Harris. One of the things that Martha Jones talks about in her work, and so many Black women historians have been trying to emphasize in the last few days and weeks, is that we ultimately wouldn't even be at this place were it not for other Black women. So many people have been saying that, Kamala Harris is the first to run for VP. That is somewhat true if you're not going to count the Progressive Party, because the Progressive Party had a VP on the ticket in the 50s. And this is Charlotta Bass from the West Coast. And if you count the Communist Party, you can talk about Charlene Mitchell and her run in the 1960s. And so the point is, if we really take a close look at these histories, what we find is that we ultimately could not even have a Black woman at this moment as a VP nominee were it not for scores and scores of remarkable Black women throughout our history who truly paved the way. And I think historians really do remarkable work in helping us frame all of this and understand how much this has been a long, long, long struggle. And I hope it inspires others too, to know that it takes time, but we have to persist, we have to keep pushing, and we can't give up. And so I just want to give a shout out to the Black women historians like Martha Jones who inspire me.
And you're getting some comments, all of you people are like, thank you for this opportunity to learn, dropping really great knowledge. And then Glenda, so a lot of times when we do our Higher Heights events, when I've been fortunate to participate, Glenda starts us off with, who are you channeling today? So when we were writing this question, I was like, I can't wait to see who Glenda says, because she always is channeling someone fabulous each time. I'm like, who's Glenda today?
I'm actually channeling all the little girls across the country who are seeing Black women that look like them, that wear their hair the way they do, that, as Stacey Abrams says, is my new thing, is that they're sturdy statured, we come in different sizes, and that we're proud of that, that we are sassy, that we are ambitious. And so I think of a couple of things. I don't have any children, but I'm a claim. She's not, when you have godchildren, you're only actually technically one godmother, but then you're the godchild of mother all of them. So the baby is 5, and her mother sent us a picture of her looking at Michelle Obama last night, right? She tried so hard to stay up. She's 5. And just to see her bright eyes because she wanted to see it. And then she lasted for 2 seconds and she was knocked out. I'm channeling George Floyd's daughter, who, when I need a little fire to fuel myself, when she answered the question about her father and they had told her, she said, my daddy changed the world. I channeled the little girl that I don't know, but she was in a march during the uprising, and she was walking with her little switch, with her little, no justice, no peace, I carry those young voices with me every day. And I will click through and they are literally the epitome of why we all do this work, so that they can have a better space to grow, learn, and lead.
Yes, I remember that video. I just kept watching it over and over again. And I was just like, man, to be that young and bold and already so secure in your leadership. And we know that happens when you see other Black women who are strong and bold in their leadership. And I do want to move us to talking about Senator Harris. So we're going to hear from her Wednesday night. So she will be the first Black woman or woman of color to ever appear on the Democratic ticket. So I want to make sure I'm getting my things right. I'm good, Dr. Blaine. I said that good? Okay. Making sure all the facts are in order. What does this mean for Black women and their role in shaping the future of politics? I'll open that up to anyone because I know it's a lot, but want to hear what you all think. Even if you could start with the moment when you found out, what went through your mind?
So, I do want to share what I think it means. I think it means, I often say, whenever there's a cracked glass ceiling, it opens up space and light for others, and that it opens up an opportunity for others. So this is a moment, and we celebrate that we have the first Black woman and South Asian, a woman that is on the ticket. We celebrate that. But we also recognize that there were other cracks all along the way that created this moment. And she's made that crack a little bit bigger. And there will be a whole bunch of other women to come up behind us. And so when we look at this moment, that's why I want us to be really reflective, to not adopt the same value system of how white men or how men in general, how they hold positions, that these positions of power are usually around in the space of domination, and it's all about centering themselves. But I'm hoping in this space that as we celebrate Kamala Harris, and I have been celebrating, I can tell you the first thing I did was I cried. It shocked me, and then I cried. And I thought about my grandmother, and I tell this story often. My grandmother would take me to vote, and she would have what she called her pocketbook, which wasn't her purse, and put it on her arm. And she would have her good pocketbook that she would take me to vote. And I didn't know, she didn't discuss with me exactly where we were going, what voting was, but I knew it was important, right? And this is a woman who was born in 1910. So most of her life, she was disenfranchised from the vote. So in that space, I think what we have to recognize, or for me, what Kamala being on that ticket represents to me is the infinite possibilities that women have to serve in positions of power. And that when we serve in those positions, that we will be transformative leaders, that we will show up differently, that the world will be more peaceful and inclusive and more equitable. So that's kind of what it means to me to see her on that ticket. It makes me proud.
I'm still working through my emotions about this. Higher Heights was, I wouldn't even say dreamed, it happened upon during a cup of coffee with Kim Peeler-Allen in 2011 when I was trying to figure out my next steps. For those who work in politics, sometimes you find yourself without a job after an election. And so I was trying to figure what my next step was going to be. And we started talking about being Black women, personally active and professionally active in progressive politics, and not seeing ourselves in many of the rooms that we were afforded to be in. And we just, out of a vent session, said we should start our own organization. We wrote down the words Higher Heights that day in 2011. And as you know, Ashanti, you were one of the early supporters and founding circle members. The women and our allies across the country built the organization over the last couple of years. And Kamala Harris said very early in our work, and then again at an event we did with the Emerge, she's like, did you know that you were going to build an organization for a time as this? And so I do think the projection of the women that are leading, and she will be bringing that to the podium tomorrow night. That she is the leadership that was built for a time as this.
I can't believe you also didn't mention that she's your soror. You talk about that all the time.
It's been a lot, The whole like, yes, I've transitioned. This is not red. So I was just on another call and we're like, oh, you're wearing red. I was like, no, I have a lot of red in my house. I will have my pink and green on. But yeah, I mean, representation, she is bringing, I'm glad you brought that up. And so at the end of the day, she's bringing a variety of identities to this moment. Right, her obviously gender, her race, her ethnicity, but is also she's uplifting and highlighting the rich culture of Black Americans, and that is the HBCU tradition and the tradition of our historically Black Greek letter organization. So for broad America who didn't know, now you know. And these are the powerful networks that we have, and although these organizations can't formally support her, they're going to learn how you unleash the organizing power of those who I said that went to HBCUs, even if you only lasted a semester or you graduated, or are a member or not an active member of a Greek letter organization. They're going to learn how how we organize, and I think that is going to be a powerful moment for people to see this informal organizing that will happen.
Yeah, but you're walking some green. You got in your glasses. So I see you, Dr. Blaine.
Well, I would just add, just to echo what everyone has said so far, it's certainly for me, it's a moment of possibility, and I think it is a moment of celebration. I'm not oblivious to the fact that there are some challenges ahead, and even as I think about representation, I also recognize that there are limitations there, that representational politics and symbolism and all of these things matter, but it doesn't necessarily have to end there, and it certainly should never end there. It actually, we have to do a lot more. I'm mindful of all these things, and I recognize that some people feel frustrated, some people feel conflicted. I sense all of that, and I certainly understand it, but I still do think it's a moment of celebration. And even though I think that we have a lot of work to do, I think we can stop. The last few months have just been terrible, and I think it's okay for a brief moment to celebrate. It's okay to say, this is something meaningful. This is an important step. Hopefully, we'll be able to celebrate some more in November. Fingers crossed. And I'm just trying to bask in that. I'm trying not to worry too much. I understand. Like I said, as a historian, I'm somewhat torn. Because I recognize that every time there is a gain or a success story, there's backlash and there are challenges, and so that's at the back of my mind too. But I really do, want to bask in a moment of celebration, because as Latasha pointed out, this is certainly a glass ceiling broken. And that in and of itself, I think we should be able to look to that and say, great, hopefully this means that the floodgates will open, that we will see more women of African descent, more women of South Asian descent, really descending to these offices and entering these spaces and having a seat at the table, so to speak. And so I'm hopeful for that. And I certainly want this to be the beginning and not the end.
So I want to move into one last question. We talked about how we know we have a lot ahead of us, and the past few months have been very hard, but all three of you have been leading through it, galvanizing women, people of color, voters, just spitting all the facts about the reality. But during this time, what are some of the things that bring you joy? What is making you happy during this time?
Well, actually very interesting for today for the commemoration of the suffrage movement is I love flowers, and I particularly love sunflowers. So sunflowers are actually the unofficial flower of the suffrage movement, right? Which I recently learned like a year or two ago. So I have been trying to act like I'm a florist, and I have joined the mighty Facebook network of Black women who love outdoor spaces. If y'all have not seen this, let me tell you about how Black women organize around outdoor spaces. It's a group that started during COVID in April. A woman who was just looking to like, how do you create outdoor spaces? Because that's what people are doing. And she now has over 100,000 members of this group since April. And it's literally people posting and talking about different things you can do in small, like, I live at a small deck to a big sprawling backyard. So I've been trying to be better. And Ashanti knows we're not good at this. But if we're not all traveling, how do we actually create some space? Because you actually can't, women can't lead and be the defenders of our homes, our communities, and our nation if we actually don't literally put our masks on first. So I'm trying to do that in this moment.
I love that. Dr. Blaine?
Yeah. Well, I'm writing a book now. I'm trying to finish a book now on Fannie Lou Hamer, which is why, of course, I referenced her earlier. And I've been spending so much time with her words, and it's just been uplifting. It's hard to even fully explain, but I just, as I read her words, and this is, for those who might not be familiar, this is a remarkable civil rights activist whose story is actually central to the larger history of voting rights in this country. And as I just go through her speeches and her interviews from the 60s and 70s in particular, I'm seeing all of the connections, right, to the present. And I think specifically about voting rights and how hard she fought for voting rights, and yet to see the ways that these rights, are being attacked and how they're being eroded, even in recent years with the Shelby Supreme Court decision, for example, and also that we're talking about voter rights suppression when Fannie Lou Hamer was also talking about voter rights suppression. The strategies have shifted. Now it's not the grandfather clause, and now it's not the literacy test, but now it's attacking how people can potentially vote by mail, or just coming up with all of these ways to limit access to the vote. And so I'm on the one hand inspired by her, and just emboldened to continue the fight, because I think she certainly laid the groundwork. She did remarkable work to get us to this place, but we have to keep pushing. So I'm encouraged by Fannie Lou Hamer, and I hope that more people will be encouraged by her story too.
In the spirit of Fannie Lou Hamer, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. That was her favorite song. That was also my grandmother's favorite song. And I think it's such a powerful message in for us. I actually saw where Rutha Harris, who is one of the original freedom singers, right here from Georgia, I saw that she was participating in this conversation, that she made a comment here. And I just want to give her love and all the women that just gave their voice and lifted up their voice to give us life, to give us hope, to make us feel connected. So one of the things that I do in, make myself feel good and connected in this time is I sing.
I love it. Thank you, Dr. Blaine. Thank you, Glenda. Thank you, Latasha. Thank you to all of you who joined us. What is bringing me joy is that I made it through moderating this panel without having a severe allergy attack. I am so grateful for that. And if you weren't able to join us in the beginning, I'm Ashanti Golar. I'm the president of Emerge. I'm the first Black woman to lead this organization. Mm-hmm. And it's such an honor to do this work, but to be in the fight with all three of you. So thank you for what you all do every day. And to close us out, I want to talk about a little bit of stats and also what we have to look forward to as we go to Election Day. You all heard it here. It's important that as more Black women claim their political power and seek their place at their table, we continue to give them the tools and support that they need to become successful political candidates. Glenda ran down these numbers for us. 25 Black women in Congress, 312 women in state legislatures out of the 7,383 women who are currently serving. So when we want to put that in more context, 5 Black women currently holding office statewide, and 7 mayors of the 100 largest cities. We had one of them join us today, Mayor Lori Lightfoot from Chicago. It's really simple. Black women, we need you. We need you to run for office. We need you to win those offices, and we absolutely need your leadership. Sign up for an Emerge training. Our website is emergeamerica.org. We're streaming this on our YouTube channel. We actually have a series that is hosted by our training director, Ryan Olson, where she starts giving little tips about what you need to think about as you start your path to public office. This is such a monumental time for Black women's leadership, for Black, Brown, and Indigenous women's leadership. And I'm so thankful that this is what I get to wake up and do every day. And thank you to all of you for what you do to change our country for the better. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. You too.